Imagine yourself on your childhood bike. What does the ride look like? Are you practicing riding with no hands? Are you trying to pop a wheelie? Did you build a ramp and you're now flying through the air? By 3, 4, or 5 years of age, children have enough balance and coordination to learn to ride. In recent years, I began tracking Wellington 3rd and 4th graders, and I noticed an unsettling trend. More and more of them were not riding independently, and many of them desperately wanted to. Did it matter? Yes. Is this concern bigger than riding a bike? I think so. We must learn to once again let kids spend time outdoors and take risk. In order for children to listen, focus, and learn to sit still, they must develop both proprioception, and vestibular sense. Proprioception is what tells you where your body parts are without looking at them. In many ways, it's like our sixth sense. It is why I can throw a softball without looking at my throwing arm. Vestibular sense provides information about where your body is in relation to its surroundings. It's like your body's internal GPS, or traffic control system. It allows a child to feel secure and confident in their body. Without a strong vestibular system, children have no choice but to fidget, experience more stumbles, get frustrated, get too close to others when talking, and struggle with focusing and listening. Getting dressed and trying new foods, finishing homework become insurmountable tasks when children don't have well-developed proprioception and strong vestibular sense. Historically, these were developed through risky outdoor play, like rolling down a hill or climbing a tree. On the average, a 10-year-old child today spends only 12.6 minutes engaging in vigorous outdoor activities, compared to 10.4 waking hours being relatively motionless. The American Academy of Pediatrics found that the average time children spend in front of screens is 8 hours per day. For older children, that number is 11 hours. The statistics today related to this type of indoor lifestyle are staggering to look at. Studies have found that stress levels fall within minutes of seeing green spaces. Exposure to natural light promotes better sleep. Spending time outdoors can reduce the symptoms of ADHD. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention shares that children who play outside in natural settings are less likely to suffer obesity and contract diabetes. Finally, studies show that outdoor experiences improve self-esteem, self-confidence, independence, autonomy, and initiative. This fall, I received an engagement grant that allows me to focus on getting children outside and helping them to become better cyclists. Now, each child had many lessons geared toward their skill level. The 4th graders were able to ride 4.6 miles at Whetstone Park. The 3rd graders worked hard to gain stamina and better control of their bikes. There was, of course, great curiosity about the hows and whys of the bike. In science, great connections were accomplished. The children were so curious about changing gears and how and why it improved the riding experience. Labs were done to teach force, follower gears, leader gears, circumference, and distance. This spring, the 3rd graders hope to explore a metro park on the bikes. The 4th graders will learn to ride on the streets of Upper Arlington. I believe that outdoor pursuits increase students' self-confidence, mutual support, fitness, and appreciation and respect for nature that will last long after they leave Wellington. My final thought, get outside. You'll be glad you did.
What is a skinned knee? I think that most people would agree that it's a superficial wound that should heal quickly. But the good ones, the ones that mark your territory, are proof that someone took a risk beyond the comfort zone, creating memories of laughter or lessons. Soccer great Mia Hamm probably states it best. You may get skinned knees and elbows, but it's worth it if you score a spectacular goal. I bet every one of you can find a scrape that has left a lasting memory. A time that you took a risk. I have one that includes me, Wonder Woman, and a second-story window. That's a lesson I'll never forget. Stretching beyond limits teaches lessons. You figure out that you either need to keep practicing until you get it, find another way. If the scrape is deep enough, maybe get advice or guidance from a mentor, and maybe even never do it again. Me, Wonder Woman, second story window. But as a teacher, I often wonder, where are the academic skin knees? How can I offer ways that students can take calculated risk where they know that someone has their back to add some confidence to keep going? I believe the search for opportunities to stretch limits in a safe zone means putting students in situations that require hard work or real-world situations that have challenges so they can build confidence, resilience, and grit, no matter the challenge. Some common student fears include taking tests, reading aloud, and speaking in front of a room. Sometimes when I tell adults that I teach math, I can already see the sweaty palms and shaking hands. Therefore, it's not surprising that students get anxious. So every day in my math class, making my students become board masters gives them an opportunity to overcome some of this anxiety in a safe environment. There's Catherine, right there in the middle. How do you like working in front of the class?
Being a board master during class is a really great way to speak in front of the class. I personally think of myself as a perfectionist, and I don't like getting things wrong. So being a board master is very nerve-wracking for me, but I do it a lot more now than at the beginning of the year. I do love getting constructive feedback from my peers if something doesn't make sense or if I get a wrong answer. At the beginning of the year, I would only go up to the board if I was completely confident in my answer. But now, I know that getting things wrong is a part of learning.
So I ask my students to reflect on their experiences every trimester. And like Catherine, Kai stated at the beginning of the year, I would only go up if I knew my answer was absolutely correct. But now I go up as many times as I can, so I had to ask why. And his answer was brilliant. Because right or wrong, someone else out there probably needed another way, and I can tell them how I solved it, or they had the same wrong answer I did. Now we all know how it can be done for next time. So most scrape knees are made outside, pushing our limits so we need to figure out ways to get our students up and out. So how about engineering days at Kings Island? It's a whole lot easier to get middle school students to consider roller coaster physics when the problem goes from this and their examples become this. So here's Cameron and Catherine to talk about some of the risks students have conquered outside of the classroom so far this year.
The first time I went to a ropes course with school. The first time I went to a ropes course with school, it was a new experience that I got to share with my friends. I was excited as we made the climb to the starting point, and then I looked down. I don't think I was ever more scared in my entire life. I felt like I was going to fall right off the ropes. I wanted to climb the hardest course right away, but after going on the first course, I realized how hard it was, and I just kept trying to move up. Eventually, I made it and went on the blue course, the second hardest course. It was pretty calm at the start, and then out of nowhere, there was an obstacle that was really hard over a deep ravine, and I had to stop for a second and catch my breath. I felt so high up, but I knew I could do it. So I took a couple of deep breaths and pushed off. I finished and ended up having a lot of fun. But that day I tackled my fear by moving forward and learned some things about myself I probably could never learn in a classroom. I was willing to take some risks, knowing I had a harness and a safety net. This opportunity will stick with me for a long time. Thinking about our trips to the ropes course, we have made some loose connections to our classes, like new vocab words, such as carabiner, learning the science of how a pulley works, and experiencing Newton's laws of motion in person as we flew down a zip line. All memorable lessons, but leaving home for a week and trekking around Washington, D.C. and Colonial Williamsburg, those connections were a close relationship with what we were learning in all of our classes. It was incredible to see our textbooks jump out of the pages as we walked the streets of our nation's capital. We took tours and even ate lunch inside the Capitol building before taking another tour. These are just a few examples on how getting out of the classroom and having new experiences are important to our education.
One of the major experiences of going to DC is laying the wreath at Arlington National Cemetery. When it was first announced that 4 students would be chosen to lay the wreath at Arlington National Cemetery, I immediately knew that I wanted to do it. I know a former tomb guard, Jeff Binnick. After speaking with him, I had a fresh perspective and knew that this was really important for me to take this opportunity because it was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. At the interview, I was extremely nervous because there was a panel of 5 teachers staring at you and taking notes as you talked, and then they ultimately decided if you were who they wanted to represent at Wellington at the ceremony. When I was finally told that I had the honor of laying the wreath, I was extremely happy and I couldn't stop smiling. Fast forwarding a few weeks to the day of the wreath laying ceremony. It was a beautiful sunny day, and 3 of my other peers and I were ready to be instructed on how to participate in the ceremony. There was an event before laying of the wreath, and it took a little bit longer than expected. The guard was not there to explain what we were supposed to do. We had 10 minutes until our time, and we were standing at the top of some stairs waiting for our turn, and we had no idea of what was going on. Then this nice lady heard what was going on, and she was in the AFTC, and she pretty much walked us through the entire thing. When we did the laying of the wreath, it was probably one of the most incredible experiences, and it was a really great way to incorporate the real world into our lives. And it was also a really amazing moment.
So be like our students. Take some risk and go skin some knees.